without further ado, I'm going to introduce Patricia. Patricia is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, director, and producer who has always kept a passionate eye and had a heart for conservation. She has directed documentaries across the world, focusing on stories that merge art, science, nature, travel, and interrelationships between humans and animals. She has collaborated with some of the world's leading conservation celebrities, scientists, and explorers with a specialization in wildlife and oceanographic productions. She is a fellow of the International of the Explorers Club and the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. As a dedicated conservationist and impact producer, Patricia is the founder of World Elephant Day, the annual global awareness day, and one of the very first animal days, animal recognition days, which there are now many. Her campaigns bring attention to the critical threats uh, facing elephants worldwide and bring awareness to millions of citizens across the globe about the plight of elephants and their habitat through events, education, film, and outreach. Without further ado, I'll pass the mic and our safari vehicle wheel over to Patricia Sims for our virtual Kenya safari.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you, Robin. This is great. Well, I can't thank Vaya Adventures enough and Canadian Geographic, World Geographic Society for hosting this today. It's really a pleasure for me to be able to share the experiences from my trip. And in fact, this trip is just only 1 month ago, and it's incredible that 1 month has passed since I got back from Kenya. So it's really exciting for me to share these photos and talk about the trip because it's still all pretty much fresh off the press. And, working with these photos and going through everything for me has brought back some incredible memories already. So to start, though, I just want to give a little bit of background about my life and my work with elephants. And I fell in love with elephants when I met Kamala, this elephant here, who was an elephant living at the Calgary Zoo. And Kamala was an Asian elephant. And just to give a little bit of a background about elephants, there are basically 3 species of elephants, 2 African elephants, and one species of Asian elephant. And for the most part, the difference between the species is the size of their ears, but everything else about elephants in terms of their behavior and their natural history and the society is basically the same between the African and the Asian elephant. And my experience with elephants really began with Asian elephants. And that basically took me on a 5-year journey that started with these elephants actually in Southwest China when I began my research work there, would have been back in 2009. And from that point, I eventually ended up in Thailand working with the street begging elephants in Bangkok, which became the subject of the documentaries that I made. Focusing on this young man, Wok, and his elephant, Nong Mai, who eventually were released back to the wild in Thailand through the work that we were doing with the Elephant Reintroduction Foundation, which was an initiative of the King and Queen of Thailand. And so during that 5-year journey, we followed the rewilding of a number of different elephants that were rescued throughout Thailand to this fantastic wildlife sanctuary in the central part of Thailand known as the Blanca. And during that time, I spent 5 years filming and following the lives there of their elephants as they went back to the wild. They were introducing at that point over 100 different elephants back into these wild habitats, which totaled about 500,000 acres of protected forest habitat. And that led to the making of 2 documentaries, Return to the Forest and the feature-length documentary When Elephants Were Young, and led to the creation of World Elephant Day, which I launched in 2012. And that was at a time when we were really looking at a lot of issues, primarily for African elephants and the ivory poaching crisis that was taking place. And we really needed to have a day to bring the world together on these issues. And so I launched World Elephant Day at that time in 2012. And from that point, it grew to become a global awareness day recognized worldwide by over 100 different elephant organizations, international media, governments, scientists, to really bring the world together on these issues and how we were going to protect these magnificent creatures. And, it was amazing to sort of see how the world did come together on the importance of this day. And it's very important to recognize that as much as we love elephants, They are a highly threatened species, and there's essentially five main threats to elephants that we have to look at and are continuing to have to deal with on a daily basis here in on Africa and in Asia. Poaching, climate change, loss of habitat, human elephant conflict. These are predominant issues that are continuing on both continents. And of course, unethical tourism becomes another challenge as well in terms of different types of wildlife management policies and such. And so when I was planning my trip to Kenya, my World Elephant Day tour, which was really exciting for me because this was going to be my first time to Kenya, even though having had worked with so many different organizations within Africa, Kenya, South Africa, Botswana, first time actually going to Kenya to meet the African elephants there in person, it was an incredible opportunity for me to partner with Vaya Adventures for this trip because Vaya really prides itself in ethical ecotourism in their customized private guiding and travel. And so for me, having this opportunity to create my World Elephant Day tour with such a knowledgeable team and private guiding was an excellent opportunity. And it brought so much value to me in this very important journey that I was about to embark on, because this was very important for me because I was actually going to be meeting African elephants for the first time, and I was going to be visiting some of the key elephant conservation organizations that have recognized and celebrated World Elephant Day each year for the past going on 14 years. So from that point, my first stop in Kenya was Nairobi. And we started there, and one visit there would not be complete without visiting the famed Karen Blixen Museum, which is the setting for the movie Out of Africa, which many of you people may have seen. And it's really quite an incredible experience to actually go there. This is actually where some of the scenes from the movie were actually filmed. And I actually stayed at the Karen Blixen cottages, which are part of that old plantation area that was actually part of the film story and the Karen Blixen plantation. And so for me, that film had a lot of significance because it really, the story set in Kenya really captured my heart. And I dreamed that one day I would have the opportunity to travel to Kenya. And who would have thought that it would have been to meet African elephants and to be with these organizations working there to protect them, who have become such a big part of my life and work since then. And so my tour, after visiting the Karen Blixen Museum, I started off with the very, very well-known and much-loved Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, which is situated in the Nairobi National Park in Nairobi. And actually, the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust has one of the longest-standing elephant conservation organizations in Kenya. It was founded by Dame Daphne Sheldrick as an orphanage for wildlife over 40 years ago. And to date, they've successfully raised and released over 300 orphan baby elephants back to the wild. And so to be able to go there to the nursery is really a special, special opportunity. And it was incredible to see how these young orphans, and they're coming from all different types of situations of being orphans, a lot of it poaching. More recently now, we're seeing a lot of more issues with human elephant conflict. Climate change issues. There's numerous ways how these elephants become orphans. And they are cared for by these incredible keepers that have such a gift and a way of being with these orphan babies and becoming a family for them. And the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust really has encouraged people to donate to help adopt and sponsor these baby elephants. There's 21 orphaned elephants living there right now at the Nairobi nursery. This is Olamunuk, and Olamunuk is actually the orphaned elephants that I actually adopted. So I got to meet him in person for the first time. That was pretty amazing. He's about a year old. He was rescued from the Masai Mara. So that was pretty cool for me to actually have the opportunity to go and give him a hug. And these are just some of the other baby elephants that are there. And working with the keepers there and learning about their special bonds that they form with these orphaned elephants is really incredible. this was incredible too. I got a bit of an elephant hug. I got two of these little orphaned elephants that came sort of be on either side of me and kind of made a little sandwich out of me. It was pretty cute. It was pretty amazing. But they're really playful and curious and just amazing to be around so many baby elephants. I don't think there's any animal cuter in the world than a baby elephant. So at the end of their day, they wander through different areas in the Nairobi National Park, all under the care of their keepers. They all get to go back to their sleeping quarters, which are these really beautiful stables that have been created by the Sheldon Wildlife Trust. And it was really amazing to see how all these young elephants just got to sort of literally file in a line and get back to their stable where they're going to get fed. And that was really an incredible thing to see these young orphaned elephants come running in and kind of just in droves. I've never seen elephants run so fast to get their very, very cherished milk. And this is what really nourishes these orphan babies, especially at this young age. And this is something that the Sheldon Wildlife Trust is really well known for, is how they've developed this really special, highly nutritional milk for these orphan babies, which enables them to grow up healthy and strong and get ready for their eventual reintegration back to the wild. So that was a pretty cool thing to see this, and very, very moving for me. It was amazing. And they're just all darlings, all of these young elephants, and they're at different ages. They're, you know, from as age as like a few months old up to about 5 years old, and then they move to the reintegration units, which I'll show you in a little while as we go through. My next stop was the Giraffe Center, which was pretty interesting. And I actually didn't even really know about this Giraffe Center, and it was actually one of the guys from Vaya that suggested that I actually go to check this out. And I am so glad I did, because I learned a lot about giraffes. So the Giraffe Center is a pretty amazing place. It's the only place in the world where they actually are caring for the endangered giraffe species known as the Rothschild giraffe. And I learned too that there are four species of giraffe. The Maasai, the reticulated, the Rothschilds is a subspecies of the northern giraffe. So this was an amazing thing to be able to see these giraffe and actually how they're being cared for there, and how they're actually also reintroduced back to the wild in some of these protected reserves and conservancies. But the fun thing is that you get to go and actually feed these giraffes, and they really, really are so incredible when they come up to you, and they are very, very gently are waiting for these specially cultivated pellets that are highly nutritional, which helps these giraffe grow big and strong. And so that's a pretty cool thing to see. So it's a very, very focused on education and this center. And so they have a lot of guides there that will speak to you about, you know, the history of the center, how it was founded, and the process of breeding this endangered species of giraffe, and then the eventual return of these giraffe to these protected areas. This is one of the babies. And I mean, I just learned a lot about giraffe that I hadn't really known before. And there's just such amazing animals. And they have so many different features. I mean, these I thought they were antlers. They're actually not called antlers, they're called ossicons. And they're essentially an extension of the giraffe's skull. And the male giraffes actually use them when they're jousting with their necks as they compete as they get older. So they actually get a lot more bare from the hair as they get older on the male giraffes. Our next stop was going to the very well-known Masai Mara. And that was quite an incredible experience. And I was on this road trip, which began with our Vaya guide by the name of Edwin Nyakori, and I never can pronounce his name properly. but his last name. But he was an absolutely fantastic, fantastic guide to work with. And he had such great natural history knowledge of all the various regions of Kenya and Tanzania. And it was really a real treat to learn about the flora and fauna of the Masai Mara from here, which really has a lot of unique grassland and unique habitat that spans throughout southwestern Kenya and into Tanzania. So he actually, it was funny because, I wanted to get a picture of him here, and he was telling us about these old abandoned termite mounds that we see all throughout Kenya, actually. And it was just really kind of interesting to look at these things because they really do form these sculptures on the landscape. And the iconic acacia trees, which are dotted out throughout the Masai Mara as well, is pretty amazing to see them. And I mean, it's such a unique landscape, and it's actually quite interesting to photograph wildlife there because you don't have a lot of brush in the foreground, so you can really get some really good imagery relatively easily. Of course, hippos are always fun to see at the watering hole, which is always the big hangout for most wildlife. And so the first part of my trip there, working with the Mara Elephant Project, which is one of the partner organizations for World Elephant Day, I went out with some of their researchers, and we were doing some elephant identification work, and which brought us to this watering hole. And always amazing to see the symbiotic relationship between the egrets and elephants. I mean, this seems to be everywhere for elephants, both in Asia and Africa. And they have an interesting relationship. The egret gets to pick the various, insects that live on the elephant's skin away, and can also eat from some of the leftover foods that the elephants are foraging. So it was always fun to see these types of interactions between different species of wildlife. This particular matriarch, she was actually with another group, but we noticed that she was actually pregnant. So that was kind of exciting because soon there'll be another calf coming into this group. And it was really nice to be able to see elephants in such a relaxed manner. They, the elephants in this area, in this Lamette Conservancy, are quite calm around vehicles, and not too much safari jeep coming through this part of the Masai Mara. So it was really, really nice to have this access. Elephants have these temporal lobes, which this is actually a good photograph of that. And this is a way of how they actually communicate with each other through touch and through scent. And you can see here actually they're often secreting a lot of sort of endocrine fluid through these temporal lobes, which is what they pick up from each other in terms of how they're able to read each other's moods and communication. So you'll often see elephants touching each other a lot with their trunks, and that's essentially what they're doing. And that's how a lot of that information is communicated between them. Another species of giraffe. This is the Maasai giraffe. They're all different from their markings, essentially. That's what I learned, that the patterns are slightly different shapes and tones. The topi, another animal you see quite a lot in the grasslands. Of course, the wildebeest. And this was a fun animal to come across, the jackal. I was really incredible to see how these jackal are actually roaming. This particular species of jackal is the black-backed jackal, and they actually mate for life, and they're not completely nocturnal, so you can actually see them during daylight, and they're really just quite an amazing shy, but really incredible animal. Buffalo. We see a lot of buffalo. And then, of course, Fred. So Fred is one of the oldest tuskers in the Masai Mara. He's 56 years old. and he has quite an impressive set of tusks. And Fred is a collared elephant, and so the Mara Elephant Project, they do a lot of tracking of elephants with drones, and this is part of the way that they're actually able to mitigate the human-elephant conflict issues that are growing in this area within the communities that are around the Masai Mara Reserve, and then also through in and around the conservancies. So on this particular day, completely unexpectedly, I learned that Fred was in trouble. Fred had been speared by a farmer. We suspect it was probably because he'd wandered into some cattle grazing area, and the Maasai Elephant Project researchers realized that he really needed some veterinarian help. So with his collaring, they were actually able to find where he was located. And so we were tracking him that morning. We got a call earlier that morning, and I was asked if I wanted to come and join the veterinarian team in the helicopter to dart Fred, to sedate him so that his wound could be treated. So I went with the researchers, and I think Fred kind of knew something was up when we approached him that morning. And sure enough, something was up, and it was a helicopter. And he was actually darted. You can see there on his flank just after he was darted. And then it took about 10 minutes for him to actually go to sleep. We followed him around as he was getting, more and more sleepy. And the helicopter team, the veterinarians are actually in the helicopter, and they're kind of just tracking and following him around until he hit the ground. And then also Kenya Wildlife Service was with us as well. And so everybody ran to his aid to make sure he was okay. And then we all had to work quickly because it's only about 20 minutes that they really want to have these elephants down for. So everybody kind of went in there to get as much information as possible about Fred, as well as treating his wound. You can see the vet team there. Actually, it's the Sheldon Wildlife Trust mobile vet clinic. They've got mobile vet teams and clinics all throughout Kenya, and they have one stationed in the Masai Mara as well. So they came in and treated the wound. And these are actually a couple of the Mara Elephant Project researchers. Incredible to be beside tusks this size on a living elephant. Incredible. So anyhow, that's how they were actually able to date him and take his from his teeth sample, looking at his teeth to be able to determine his age range and then the size of his tusks. Anyways, after about 20 minutes, he was given an antidote and he woke up. Yeah, a little bit worse for wear, but not too bad. He was a little bit bleary-eyed and kind of wandered off into the forest, and he's doing fine. I've actually been getting regular reports on Fred ever since. And here I am with Edwin, and it was amazing. Another good reason having a private guide, because we were able to be very spontaneous and take this amazing opportunity. For me, having this work with the Mara Elephant Project going on for I guess the last 5 or 6 years, anyways, that we've been partnered with the World Elephant Day campaign each year. But to be able to work with them specifically on the ground in this really important activity was really, really cool. And it was great to having Edwin along there with me. And the other great thing about Edwin is having really good knowledge of what my needs are as a photographer and as a filmmaker. So really being able to get me into the right place where I need to be with the cameras and such. And he had very, very good camera knowledge as well. So from the Masai Mara, we drove all the way to Tsavo East, which is Tsavo National Park is the largest national park in Kenya, and it's divided basically into two, east and west, pretty much just divided by the highway there. So we drove to Tsavo East, bit of a long drive, but worth it, and quite a lot of amazing things to see along the way. And of course, one of them was this incredible market. Which we were able to pick up some great local produce. There's a lot of agricultural activity down in this part of Tsavo. The very rich soil base, highly fertile volcanic soil. So we were picking up provisions for the eco camp that we were staying at, actually the Sheldon Wildlife Trust Eco Lodge. And so we picked up some fresh vegetables and fruit from the marketplace, which was pretty great. Nothing like fresh vegetables, which brought me to the Galana River and the Geldessa Eco Lodge, which is one of the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust Eco Lodge. And this is a really spectacular river where we had lots of wildlife viewings and incredible activity with a lot of bird life. Course, Eddie totally captured my heart. Eddie is a wild elephant, and he's actually not a reintroduced former orphaned elephant from the Sheldrick Trust. He's a true blue wild elephant, but for some reason he's very, very interested in people and visitors at this eco lodge. So he comes regularly to say hello to visitors as they come, and it was quite incredible to see Eddie. He's extremely gentle, very, very curious, and basically hangs out and then wanders off down the river. He lives in that area. He's about 26 years old, they figure, and it was quite amazing to meet him. And of course, the hippos. I mean, the hippos totally are hilarious. And they're very hard to see because they're usually in the water during the day. So they're up on the riverbanks in the morning, early morning. So I got up on this one early morning to get some photos of them. And they're quite fun to watch. And this particular group of hippos live there. The resident hippos there at the Sheldrick Eco Lodge. So it's really, really amazing to have hippos every morning while having coffee. So lots of photography, and we went on our drives across on this particular day over to the Boy Reintegration Unit, which is on the other side of this area in Sabo East, about an hour and a half drive from the lodge. And so along the way, I had some really great opportunities to get some wildlife photography in, and great working with with this type of vehicle because it allows you to really get up high and be able to see far. The Savo elephants are a little bit different than the Masai Mara elephants in that they're a little bit less uh, uh, friendly around the vehicles. They're a little more cautious. They tend to be a little more wary, and that unfortunately has to do with the fact that there has been quite a lot of poaching historically in Sabo for elephant ivory, and so there's still the remnants of this and the memories of these elephants. And on this particular morning, as we were driving, this matriarch decided that she didn't really want us on the road while she was going to be crossing the road with her family. So she made it pretty clear to us that we had to back off and wait until she crossed. She wasn't being completely aggressive, but she was definitely being assertive. And it was quite amazing to see her behavior in this way. I mean, they make it pretty clear they don't want you coming near them. You know, they shake their heads, they wave their trunks, they wave their ears, and it is pretty menacing. And you definitely do want to give them their space. So we did, and Edwin, our guide, knew exactly how to handle that, backing the Jeep up slowly, and we just waited calmly while she crossed. And she got her family aside, and then she totally chilled out and posed for this photo. And she happens to be the photo that we have for our webinar today too. So that was a pretty cool experience. So we carried on driving. This is actually a really interesting gazelle. It's actually not even a gazelle. It's called a giraffe. And it has a very, very long neck. And they actually feed on their hind legs when they're browsing in the forest areas and stuff. So that was pretty cool to be able to see that, because they're typically the Gerenac's typically quite shy. So It's always fun when you get to see animals that you don't normally get to see. Like the leopard. I mean, that was also a real thrill for me. And cats are so hard to photograph because they're during the day they're sleeping most of the time, or they're a lot in the brush. And so it was really hard to get a clear shot of this leopard. But I did manage to get a pretty good viewing of her. She had a cub actually in a cave, which is where this was, but wasn't able to see the cub. And then eventually we ended up at the boy reintegration unit, and where with Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, which is where we wanted to get to and meet the orphans there. Now these are older. They're 5 years up to about 10 years, and this is really kind of where they graduate and go back to the wild. And this is a really amazing process of reintegration that these elephants go through, and often helped by the wild elephants that are resident elephants living nearby in this particular part of Tsavo. So it was pretty amazing to see the relationship here with the keepers is equally as close as what we saw at the nursery. These elephants are more mature, very bonded to these keepers as well. They're still having milk as part of their diet, but they're also foraging a lot more, and eventually they're weaned from the milk completely. So usually by the time they're 10, they're back to the wild, and they start to make it obvious to the keepers when they're feeling more confident to go off on their own or go off with the wild groups that are in the area. It's so incredible to see how they're growing and their temperaments and their confidence is really incredible. And they really get that from each other and also from the help of the keepers being there to nurture them. One of the things that the keepers keep a bond with these elephants even when they go back to the wild. But they are also very careful of not having the elephants get too attached to any of them individually. This particular one, I was told by the head keeper that she was pretty much at the point where she was ready to go back to the wild, and often doesn't even want to come around the reintegration unit any longer. So they know that she's almost ready to to go. And they do it really gradually. And I think she was about 10 years old. These are waterbuck, doe. It's just lots of wildlife everywhere. And you kind of, you know, stop and take a photo when you see, oh my God, look, there's a dik-dik. That's one of the, I think it is technically the smallest antelope there is. And they're really small. They're almost the size of like a hare, and pretty cute. Also very shy. So we came across another family group as we were driving back, and the elephants of Tsavo are often referred to as the red elephants, and it's not because they're actually really red. They're the same color as all the other elephants, but this is from the fine red volcanic dirt that comprises this whole area. And so these elephants are continually dust bathing with this red volcanic dirt, which gives them this constant red color, which is actually really unique and really beautiful. So this particular group is interesting as well, because there was a group of juveniles that were part of this group that were quite curious about us. Unlike the earlier experience with the other matriarch and her family, this matriarch standing in the back there seemed to want these juveniles to kind of come and check out our Jeep. And so a group of them came under her watchful eye and started to kind of come around us. So at one point we were surrounded by all of these juvenile elephants, ranging in age, looked to me from, somewhere between 3 and maybe 6 or 7 years old. And they started doing these kind of little mock charges towards us, like they were trying to sort of, test our bravery or something. And then they run towards us, and then kind of run back and group up together, and then run towards us again. And it was almost like they were kind of having fun with us, playing with us and laughing about it at the same time. It was really, really cute to watch their behavior. Some giraffe, rather interested in this termite mound. These termite mounds are kind of all over the place, and it's kind of fun to see them around. They really, really dot the landscape in an interesting way. Another really fun animal that I got to photograph quite a bit were these yellow baboons. Of course, monkeying around. Who doesn't like watching primates do their thing? We have so many things in common with them. Well, this is quite an interesting group, quite curious. We can't forget that they can be quite fierce, and those teeth are a pretty good example of that. Antelope, lots of zebra. One of my other most favorite encounters was the Three Musketeers here, these three zebra. They were pretty hilarious. They were rolling around in the ground, and we couldn't quite figure out what was going on here. But there were these three zebra and their gang were playing around in this patch of dust, rolling around, laughing, rolling around. This went on for about 10 or 15 minutes. And these and then the Three Musketeers sort of wandered off, and we were trying to figure out what could it possibly be. And Edwin was saying that the lion scent might have been there, and there was an idea that perhaps they were rolling in the lion scent to kind of deter any potential lion attacks or something like that. So it was a little bit of a mystery what was going on there with this dust roll, but pretty fun to watch. And eventually we got to the the sort of stockade part of the boy reintegration unit, which is where all the babies come at the end of the day. So those earlier ones that we were seeing there at the watering hole now end up here, and this is where they spend the night. So it's a place for them to be safe and to be comfortable, and still get their nourishment with the milk. And then they sleep in these stockades, and then are taken back out to the savannah the next morning. Many of these keepers have been working with the Sheltered Wildlife Trust for over 20 years, and they really have a special talent, which I was continually impressed with. Their connection to these elephants and their understanding of their behavior. These guys would just race in for their milk, and then head to bed. As they're more mature, they don't have the keepers staying with them in the night as they do at the nursery. And they bond with each other more so in this area, in the stockade. And eventually they will join the wild herds that are all roaming around through this area as well. Savo's an incredible place to see elephants. There are a lot of elephants there, and the landscape is pretty overwhelmingly beautiful. Interestingly, at the gate entrance to Savo East, there was this group of bulls that were hanging out, and kind of interesting to see the juxtaposition of these bulls with these hydro lines. But they would hang out at this water hole, and this is actually the highway that divides Tsavo East from Tsavo West National Park. From there, we went north to Sarara, the Sarara Valley in North Kenya. Two different types of aircraft to get up there, an Otter and a Cessna. And we arrived in the Sarara Valley. It's absolutely spectacular, breathtaking landscape and the Matthew Mountain Range, and really amazing. And the rainy season had ended there a bit late, and so things were still quite green, which made it even more spectacular. And definitely the land of rainbows. We saw a lot of rainbows there. And you can see some giraffe at the bottom there under that rainbow. Another species of giraffe. This is the reticulated giraffe. And they're predominantly in the northern part of Kenya. You can see the different color here, a little more of a bronzy color. We stayed at a really nice eco lodge, Sarara Eco Lodge, and they had this really great watering hole right near the lodge, which has attracted elephants at the end of each day, and so it was really fun to watch the babies play in the water and do all their fun baby antic stuff. Lots of bird life, kingfishers, baby owl, the owlet. This is a spotted owlet. And then a visit to the Reteti Elephant Sanctuary, which is unique in Africa, actually. Reteti is relatively new on the elephant conservation organization front there. It was established in 2016, and it's an orphanage as well for orphaned baby elephants and other wildlife, predominantly in North Kenya, in the Sarara Valley. It's unique because in this particular area, it's in the what's known as the Namunyak Conservancy, which is a community Samburu tribe community-owned conservancy, which is upwards of about 800,000 acres of almost 1 million acres actually of conservancy community land. And this community center, this orphanage, is run by the Samburu community, and much in the same format as the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. They bring, babies in from all kinds of different circumstances, and nourish them, and return them back to the wild. The other nice thing about the Reteti Elephant Sanctuary is many of the keepers are women, which is also unique in Kenya. So it was pretty amazing to watch the behavior of these elephants. And again, these keepers had a really, really close bond with these elephants. A little bit of a different style of engagement with their elephants. I don't believe that these elephants are kept for quite as long as they are kept in Tsavo, and they're a lot more integrated into the environment there. And the same, they have these stalls that they go and sleep in at night where they're kept safe. And from there, we went to Samburu, the Samburu National Reserve, which was just a couple of hours drive from there. And there I was visiting with Save the Elephants, which is another long-standing elephant conservation organization founded by Ian Douglas Hamilton about 30 years ago. Save the Elephants does a lot of science research, and also was very much Ian Douglas Hamilton was actually the first scientist to start collaring elephants so they could track the movements and behaviors of elephants. This is some of their research team there that are still doing a lot of the tracking of the elephants in through the Sambur area. So it was really great to go out with them and see some of the elephants that they're studying and some of the other wildlife as well, a couple of young vultures, some giraffe courtship. This guy was interested in her and it was kind of fun to watch their behavior. I think we were there actually, it might have been giraffe mating season or something, because there was actually quite a lot of giraffe courtship going on that I was witnessing throughout all the areas that we were visiting. They wanted to move away to be a bit private. This is one of the groups that Save the Elephants have been studying, and one of their elephants there is collared. So we followed them around for a while and led us to some really interesting areas of habitat. And eventually came across this zebra that was injured. And we think he was actually injured by a lion, and the the lioness, one of the things I was most, happy to be photographing was this lioness woken up and on the prowl. We think she might have been after the zebra. We had to leave the park. It was coming to sundown, and we can't be in the parks at night. So we're not sure what happened, how this story ended between this lioness and the zebra. But it was a beautiful time up there, and over to Dervla.
Thank you so much, Patricia. That was incredible. Um, I know that I can't wait to get the opportunity to visit Kenya. I'd like to quickly introduce Dervla Pinto, who is the Director of Africa at Vaya Adventures. Having explored 72 countries on 6 continents, it's always Africa that calls for back. After studying at the university in Tanzania and traveling overland from Cairo to Cape Town, she made her way into the adventure travel industry, where for over a decade now, she has designed special tailor-made unique trips to her favorite continent. Dervla's going to take us through a little bit about what it's like to travel through Africa. Without further ado, I'll pass this over to Dervla.
Thank you so much, Robin. And thank you so much, Patricia. That was amazing. I feel like I was right there. So Patricia's going to assist me with some of these slides. So if I am just saying, next, that's what we're working with. So we just wanted to touch a little bit on responsible tourism, which is just the core and the ethos of everything we do here at Vaya, across all of our partnerships, whether that be guides or lodges, locations, experiences that we curate for our clients. This is always at the forefront. So being able to have Patricia work with some of these organizations is really special, but that's really something that we take very seriously as we do think about where we want to send people and how we curate these trips. And across the 14 countries that we operate in Africa, there are only 4 or 5 sort of up close and personal wildlife experiences that we will curate for clients. And 3 of them you've just heard about from Patricia, which is the Sheldrick, the Ratati, and also the Giraffe Center in Nairobi, which are 3 things that a lot of our guests will take some time to visit if they are traveling to Kenya and Tanzania. But ultimately, it has to be about conservation. It has to be about wildlife at the forefront. And so we won't be booking anything where, there's too much touching or where there's breeding involved, things like that. And that's something we're really happy to chat with clients about and talk people through. So that's always at the forefront of what we do when we are planning these types of trips. Moving forward, we're going to touch a little bit on some of the itineraries that we can plan that you could find on our website. Some of these will be Kenya and Tanzania. Patricia focused purely on Kenya. You can go forward just so everyone can see. So these are some examples of trips that, we know and love. They are on our website because they are examples of routes or locations or curated experiences that we love. But they are just starting points. They are just examples of things that we can do, but every trip is specified to the parameters of the person who's traveling. So whether that be time, budget, location, experiences, special occasions, anything like that. We always want that information first so that, while this is a great starting point, we're really building each and every trip around each and every client. That's really important. And I think there's a couple more slides that just highlight that as well. Although Patricia spoke very specifically to Kenya today, we do offer trips, as I mentioned just now, in 14 African countries. And there are a lot of elephants in Southern Africa too. Some of the largest populations are in Chobe National Park in Botswana. And, there are elephant experiences in and around Victoria Falls that are sort of similar to some of the projects that Patricia has visited in Kenya that we can arrange for our clients as well. So that's something that we really sort of love doing for people as well. And then moving forward, I'm just going to talk through a little bit in terms of the type of travel that we do. So it really, like I said, is very, very custom. And if you want to go forward, just one more slide, we're going to just take a quick look. Some of these, I think, are Patricia's personal photos. Some of these are great examples of the lodges that we work with. So there's a bunch of different styles of safari. And again, that's sort of, we want to chat to you and find out what is going to work for you. There are more bricks and mortar lodges, as I like to say, that will have pools and, glass fronted that you'll see there in the bottom right-hand corner where you can really close yourself in at night. Lots of, any luxury or amenity that you could ever imagine. And then going forward to the next slide, you'll see some examples of more tented accommodation right there in the top left, where yes, you are in a tent, but you still got the best armchair to sit out and have a coffee and watch the elephants and watch the wildlife coming by as well. Things like bush breakfast, really getting people to connect with some of these last wild places on earth is really important. There's no point in going all that way if you're not going to be properly out there. So even the lodges can be designed in a way that, it feels like you're getting a mix of experiences. Maybe you do a couple of lodges that might have a pool and one that is tented and way out, or you do a night of fly camping where you're properly out there. So we like to mix and match. We like to mix and match locations, styles, as well as the different experiences that you could have at some of these lodges. And I think there's one more slide, if I'm not mistaken, that just shows again some photos of, so having a diversity of landscape, having a diversity of experience is always just going to open you up to new interactions, new territories. A lot of wildlife are extremely territorial. As Patricia so beautifully touched on, there are species like the reticulated giraffe that only live really north of the equator. And so getting yourself up to the north and then mixing it with some of the more famous parks or some of the more private conservancies is a really, really wonderful way to start thinking about a trip to East Africa or even, any destination on the continent. And then I think there's just a couple more slides. Again, if these are some of Patricia's beautiful photos of some of the places that she stayed. A lot of the 3, I believe, out of the 4 of the lodges are places that we work with regularly. And it's, it's something that we always want to just hear from each person and see what we can do to curate a trip. I believe that's it in terms of lodge styles, but if anyone has any questions on that, we are so happy to chat and sort of walk you through what could be possible in any of these destinations.
Yes, so we are now in the question and answers section of our presentation. And I do know that we have a private airport transfer soon to end our adventure. So we might have to just do a couple of questions, but we will provide contact details so you can email Vaya Adventures, World Elephant Day, or Canadian Geographic directly following today's virtual safari. Here we go. Patricia, Julian has a question for you. Where do the elephant orphans go from the shelter after they're released?
They go into the national park. So they're living in, so in that particular place that I was showing, the Voi reintegration unit, those elephants are going into Tsavo. They roam into that national park area and join in with a lot of the wild herds that are living there already. And that's particular to those ones. The Shelter Trust, they have 4 or 5 reintegration units that are spread throughout Kenya, and Tsavo is their main area of operation, and they've got about 4 or 5 different reintegration units within there. So it's all different regions of West and East Tsavo. And then also recently, they have also some private conservancies that are contiguous with Tsavo National Park that are part of that reintegration habitat area too. They've reintroduced over 300 elephants now from that were orphaned from their beginning, from their history.
That's fascinating. I have a question here from Javier. How many elephants are actually like on the continent of Africa? I'm not sure if this is a Patricia question or a Dervla question.
Well, I can tell you from my knowledge, there's about 400,000 African elephants remaining on continental Africa, spread between, I think, 8, 10 African countries. Most of them are in Botswana, South Africa. Kenya, I think, has 35,000. And then it kind of just goes from there. But the largest population's in Botswana.
If there's any further questions, please do enter them into the group chat, guys. I have one from George here. I think this may be a Dervla question. Dervla, as an Africa specialist, what would you recommend for someone who wants a genuine Africa experience with incredible wildlife, but has a limited time schedule?
So we can work within any time schedule, even though it's a long way to go. I think some of the most authentic places are doing a mix of both national parks, what Patricia touched on, as well as private conservancy. So allowing you to be on land that is either owned or run by the community. And that has an authenticity to it that's really special because you have to be staying on that land, to be driving on that land, or to be experiencing wildlife on that land. And that just allows you to feel like you're the only one in the world, which I think is a really special feeling. And, you know, we need to be responsible in terms of making sure that certain destinations are not too overloaded. That's part of being, you know, being really responsible with how we're running our trips and our tourism. So I think, you know, hopefully that answers your question a little bit. I would say from the United States, it is easier to think about a trip going into some of the hubs like Kenya, like Nairobi or Johannesburg in Southern Africa. And then from there, 5 or 6 days on the ground, you could really get out into some incredible wild places and still have a mix, like I touched on earlier, with regards to your experience with maybe doing one tented camp, doing a bit of walking, doing a bit of driving. And that would really, I think, make for a really authentic experience because there's a lot of life in the in-between places as well. So I think that's one thing that makes Africa come alive for many people. So yeah, it really just depends on your parameters and we would discuss it and find the best option.
Thank you so much, Dervla. Let me just take a look. Oh, here's a Patricia. Do you have any wildlife visitors around the camps at night when you were there?
Yes, we did. We did. Well, certainly the at Galdessa, the Galdessa Eco Lodge, which is the Shelter Wildlife Trust property there in Tsavo, the hippos are there. They're right there. They're right in the river, right outside your beautiful lodge. And hippos are very loud. It's actually it's impossible to imitate the sound of a hippo. Like I was actually trying to imitate it. It's like you can't describe it. Dervla, you know what I'm talking about, what they sound like.
She's not wrong. She's not wrong.
Like the craziest sound. And you know, the first night that I was asleep there, and I was woken up by this like sound, like right outside. It was like, what is that? Hippos. Of course, the hippos aren't really a problem. In terms of, you know, thinking I was going to be, you know, somebody's, you know, dinner. Lion are around too. The Galdessa Eco Lodge, they have actually electric fencing all around the lodge area, so you don't really have to worry about predators
Awesome.
roaming in. And they also have guides, right? And every one of the lodges that I was staying in, there are trackers that are patrolling the area at night. Like where we stayed, the Saruni Wild Camp in the Lamette Conservancy is more of an open tent kind of setup. It's like that. There was some photos that I showed from there. And yeah, you're open game, no pun intended. There are lions roaming around. So they do have guides, security guys, trackers that are wandering around at night with guns to make sure that nobody's going to be anybody's dinner. But yeah, you can hear them. You can hear lions, you can hear elephants, you can hear the hippos. You hear animals roam. I think it's exciting to hear animals roaming around outside. So anyhow, that was cool. That was one of my most favorite memories, in fact.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure, Dervla, you've encountered your fair share of nocturnal wildlife experiences while in camp. But are there, Dervla, does Vaya offer very much in the way of nighttime safaris or
Again,
night
that's
game drives?
We absolutely can. That depends again on what we touched on earlier about the difference in land. So if it's a community conservancy, oftentimes they will do a night drive. You can also get out on foot a little bit and do a bit of a bushwalk. There are some destinations on the continent where bushwalking really is getting up close and personal. And there are some destinations where it's more learning about plants and animals and birds. But again, it just depends on the location and the lodge where you can really get out at night. And if that's something that interests you, we can work around that.
Fantastic. And then just one last question from Louise for Vaya. Do we try to keep our tour numbers low to make it a little more personal experience? So this is a Dervla question, and Patricia just experienced it firsthand. So
Yeah, so all of Vaya's tours, everything we ran through, everything you see on our website is private guided. So it's just for you. We have no set departures. You would never be joining another group. In the differences in safari, very occasionally, if you fly into a lodge and you're arriving by plane, oftentimes you will be with the lodge for your game drive experiences. So you may be with up to 4 other people on that vehicle, but everyone would have their own row. There's nothing worse than traveling all that way and being in the middle seat. I can think of nothing worse. So everything is private guided, but on occasion, depending on the lodge and the location, you may be with the lodge for your safari experiences, in which case you could be with others. But ultimately, yes, it would just be, we only offer custom private experiences throughout.
fantastic. And I personally have one last question for Patricia. Patricia, after having experienced your private tour in Africa, would you like to go back?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, having not been in Africa for all of this time and going for this first time, I mean, I guess I kind of always sort of knew somewhere in my heart that I would go to Africa eventually. And a lot of people had said to me, well, you've done so much work with elephants. But as I started saying, it was with Asian elephants. So to go to Africa for that first time, it was like everything that I ever heard about Africa from all of my colleagues, and more. I mean, it totally gets into your heart and you want to go back. And I totally want to go back. I mean, I've been back a month and I'm already missing, that experience of wanting to go back immediately. It was amazing. It's a very, very special place. I mean, the history, there's so many facets to it. I mean, I was there really with a very specific focus of, elephants and the relationships with the elephant conservation organizations that I've been associated with over these years. But there's so many different other aspects, even just to Kenya, that would have been so amazing to have had the time to explore the cultural aspects, the historical aspects. I mean, it's amazing. The Kenyan people are incredible. Like I was just blown away by the whole experience. I just loved it.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And I don't know about all of you, but I really, really enjoyed today's virtual safari. Um, learning about the extraordinary wildlife and everything firsthand. A little bird did tell me there may be an upcoming Canadian Geographic article written by Patricia coming out in the next couple of months on her World Elephant Day tour and work through in Kenya. A big thank you, Patricia, World Elephant Day, everyone at Canadian Geographic magazine for today's, and Dervla at Vaya Adventures for today's virtual adventure. To learn more, you can follow our organizations on our social channels right here, or visit our websites, royalelephantday.com, Canadian Geographic Magazine, or viaadventures.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please do stay in touch. We'll be certain to reach out about our next virtual adventure somewhere else across the world. And be sure to travel safe.